Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Sharing Hope. As you know, today we have another quality choice vessel, Holly Moore, and she is going to really impact you with some great insights in the business arena, particularly with leaders. But there's so much for everybody. So you're going to get a lot out of this. Let me tell you a little bit about Holly. She is the president of Hollis Strategies, where she serves as a leadership and strategic growth consultant for businesses and nonprofits. She's worked for almost a decade in corporate role, publicly traded company, and then spent about 15 years or so in executive leadership positions in the nonprofit arena. Currently, she works with top executives and leaders to help them build high-performing teams through scalable people development in organizations all around the United States. So much to talk about today, Holly. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Sure. Well, let's jump right into things. You know, with when I look at someone with your credentials, experience, your background, you know, here we are in this time in history. It's quite extraordinary. You know, we've got leaders across America that are really working through this, and they're facing the massive health crisis, which is obviously cause and effect, hammering now the economics of our country.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is having a huge impact on the people that they lead. So what do you think people really want from their leaders right now? Think of the leaders that are, you know, the small business owners or executives coming in. What are people needing to hear from them at this phase?
Yeah, that's a great question, Michael. And as you said, we're just living in a time that is really unimaginable. I think even, 6 months ago, we probably would have never imagined ourselves in this situation. Just this morning, spent about an hour and a half on the phone with someone that leads a large organization here in Atlanta, which is my hometown. And she's just facing a lot of decisions, a decrease in revenue, and what are they doing about staffing? It's impacted the way that they deliver some of their services. And that story is being told around our country millions and millions and millions of times. I think, Michael, when I think about this, I reflect back on a recent poll that was done by the Gallup organization, and they polled a large number of people, and they asked them, they said, what do you really want from your leader? What is it? And the results were interesting, Michael. The four things were they wanted trust, they wanted compassion, they wanted stability, and they wanted hope, which I think is really interesting. So 6 months ago, that's what our teams wanted. They wanted a leader that they could trust. They wanted a leader that showed compassion and empathy for them. They wanted stability. And I think that stability, I think, Michael, in the life of the leader, it does not always mean that things don't ever change, or things we're not going through a change, or we're not having to address different issues. But there's something about having stability in a leader, that leader is calm, that leader is peaceful, that leader stays optimistic. Just having that stable force is such a calming presence. And then lastly, hope. People want to feel like they're working for a leader that listen, we can all get tons of bad news today. All you have to do is scroll social media, turn on your television, go to YouTube, whatever, and it's a lot of bad news. I think that the great leaders don't downplay. They don't live in denial. They're not saying that we're not facing hard things, but they're saying this is a problem that together there's going to be a way that we can find a solution. We're going to be able to make our way forward. We're going to do this together as a team. So I think trust, compassion, stability, and hope are things that those that we lead, they have always wanted. I think that great leaders today are finding ways to do that at an elevated level, even in the midst of what we're going through.
Absolutely. Sure. And people are really leaning on them more than ever before. Here you are, you're mentioning things like trust and stability. which, are these bedrocks that we need right
Yeah.
now. And with your experience, speak to how a leader, practically, and you mentioned some of those things, that calming presence, so on and so forth, but what are some practicals that leaders can start putting into practice to build trust with the people they lead?
And I'm glad you pointed that one out, Michael, because really trust is the bedrock of all of this. We want to be working under a leader. We want to work in an organization where there's trust. I've heard it said before, if in a relationship between two people, whether it was personal, professional, if someone's not telling the truth, if someone's being deceptive in any way, then really you've destroyed all basis for a relationship. So especially in times of a crisis, I think the leader has got to really lean in as far as what are they doing to be able to build trust. So here's a couple of practical tips. First of all, for the leader to really be authentic. Right? If they're struggling trying to figure out how to balance work and home and they're doing a staff meeting on a Zoom call, it's okay for them to say, hey, you know what? I'm trying to figure out how to teach my fifth grader math. I'm right there with you. I'm struggling. I'm trying to figure it out too. The other thing that builds trust is over communicating. Michael, sometimes we don't have the specific answer to the question that people are asking, but even if that leader says, I want you to know that I'm aware that this is on your mind. I know we need to get an answer to this question. This is where it stands today. I don't have all the answers, but this is what we're doing. This is how we're studying it. I'm going to be looking at these different factors. I'm going to come back to you next week and we're going to talk. Just providing that type of clarity in our communication, it lets the other person know you are aware of what's going on, you're mindful of me, and you're not just hoping that I'm going to just magically know what's going on inside of your mind. So I think, again, leaning in with authenticity, over communicating. And then I think the other thing, Michael, is we just need to be incredibly, incredibly empathetic right now. I listened in on a webinar with noted business management consultant Pat Lencioni a couple of weeks ago, and he was just talking about the power of empathy, of us being willing at this time during a staff meeting, instead of us just automatically trying to get to the task at hand, are we genuinely asking questions? How are you doing? Talk to me about your family. What's going on? I heard a story of a company that decided, they're doing all these different Zoom calls, but they called for just a really fun gathering where people were going to get on Zoom, but they said, invite your spouse, your kids, your pet, whoever, just we'll all get on Zoom together. And the purpose was really social connection during this time and to feel like you really knew each other. And I would say that's not wasted time in the life of a leader in times like this. That is leaning in and showing empathy and so focusing on the relationship. I believe that when we do that now, the seeds that are planted, it's going to cause the depth of relationship to even increase. And it's going to be so helpful in the months to come.
Good answers. And those are some solid practical things. And I've heard of some of these, even with my own church that I'm a part of. We'll get on Wednesday nights just to talk and have connection time, and that authentic,
so important,
and genuine nature. Yeah, very important. Now let's talk to the point here where, obviously you do a lot of work with organizations, building high performing teams. What qualities, you just talked about some really neat qualities there, but what qualities you see in high performing teams, especially right now?
Yeah, again, I love talking about this. And I'm sure that the people that are listening to this, you've got so many top level leaders and executives and people that are really at the height of their career that are part of the Medi-Share family. So they may agree with the way that I like to frame it. But if you almost think of a flywheel, Michael, I really think that the 5 ingredients to a high performing team are this: communication, relationships, alignment, execution, and capability. And I actually believe they have to build sequentially in that order. But here's the thing that can happen to us, especially in times of stress. And some of us just really have a temperament where this is really where we want to go with things. We can get up in the morning, we're feeling the pressure, we've looked at our P&L, we see where the numbers are, and we want to go and we just want to start attacking execution, right? What's the plan? What's the strategic plan? Am I getting things done? Let's go, let's go, let's go, pushing our people. But what I have found, if you really study high-performing teams and high-performing organizations down through history, Michael, the bedrock is communication. If healthy communication is not in place, if people don't really understand the different temperaments and personalities, and maybe a way to say it is the voices that are there on the team, and finding ways to make sure that every voice around the table is heard, if that communication is there, it makes it next to impossible for that team to ever perform at the potential that they're able to. But if I really begin to put some practices in place that there's healthy communication, every voice is heard, then the outcome of that is there's more trusting relationships. We know we've got each other's back. We know how to resolve conflict. We know how to come together and collaborate effectively. Well, if that's in place, then the team can come together and really get alignment. Are we clearly aligned around our purpose, our vision, our mission, our values? I have one organization that I work with, Michael. They actually created a destination statement saying, yes, we have our purpose, mission, and values, but they wanted to paint a clear picture. This is where we want the company to be in 10 years. You need that kind of alignment that people can rally around. And then at that point, yes, you focus on that execution, but people understand if the alignment is clear, then they're able to understand, and this is the role I play. These are the tasks that are mission critical. I know that I've got to hit this key performance indicator. And then the final piece, Michael, is great leaders are always thinking about this. They're thinking about building and expanding capacity. Are they building their own capacity? Are they raising the capacity in each individual contributor on the team? Are they building bench strength for the future? Maybe think of it this way. Sometimes all of us, we might have some kind of a plan that if our time on earth ends and we pass away, then we know how we're transferring our financial assets to our family members, to another loved one. As leaders, we need to think about what is my emotional, intellectual, organizational, kind of the intellectual property that I have that's just my unconscious competence of being able to lead. Do I have an intentional plan that I am transferring that knowledge to other people in my organization so that we're building capacity? So again, if you think about communication, relationships, alignment, execution, and capacity, those are all so important, especially as we maybe in the next few weeks or months move out of this heightened crisis phase, and then people are trying to come back and rebuild their business, and maybe the revenue projections that they had for first and second quarter were just completely decimated, but they've got to figure out what does the back half of 2020 look like. I think those are the important components that every great leader is going to need to really look at.
Wow, very interesting. And you just touched on something, at the beginning when you started talking about people are looking to get into the execution phase. Well, a lot of times, and I know this, it's because people are looking for the bottom line, So talk to us now how COVID has affected our metrics. We have a lot of business people hopefully tuning into this. How has COVID affected this or impacted this? Speak to that.
Well, and it's similar to kind of what I was saying. I was on the phone literally just a couple of hours ago with a leader, and she actually said these words. She said, Holly, the only thing I'm thinking about right now is revenue. And I get it. I really get it. Whether you're a for-profit or a nonprofit, you really can't do anything if there's not revenue to to create your good or service, deliver your good and service. So on the one hand, I understood the point that she was making. And yes, we need to be able to think about revenue. I just would say in times of pressure, sometimes we can automatically go to execute. What are we going to do? And I just want to encourage every leader, as I'm encouraging myself right along with you. If I just race forward 90 miles an hour and I enter every single meeting, every single interaction that I have with a team member, and I'm immediately going to this execution, task-driven mentality, Michael, I just think it's going to backfire on us. And I really want to encourage myself, you, all of us that are leaders here. We've got to lean into the communication and relationships the relationships aspect of people development. Because Michael, the people that are working for us on our teams, they're hurting. They're afraid. They're anxious. They're scared. They are trying to deal with a lot of different variables in their life. And so we've got to make some extra space for the communication and the relationship piece. And it's going to pay off in our team's ability to execute. But I would say as we're in the middle of COVID-19, and then as we transition out more into a recovery phase, lean in with people, and it's going to make all the difference in the world.
Great, good insights there. I've been taking some notes as you're talking, and I'm going to count backwards of the 5 kind of qualities that you gave a minute ago: capability, execution, alignment, relationships, and that all begins with
communication.
Right? So
absolutely.
We're fast forwarding into now, metrics, revenue, as companies or leaders are looking, to move forward. What communication tips can you give, that leaders can start working through those plans in the future in light of COVID-19?
Well, let me share one tool with you. And I think, Michael, as you and I have gotten to know each other, I've been sharing with you, part of the work that I do is in conjunction with my work with Giant. And Giant creates a platform, Giant TV, which is all about scalable people development. And one of the tools that was created by Giant that I use a lot with my clients is a communication tip that I think will really be helpful. And here's the premise of it: provision, plan, promise. This is what happens. Sometimes you've got someone and they're the CEO of the organization, or they're the senior vice president, right? They're sitting in a place of a lot of position and authority. Those people oftentimes are very future oriented. They're ideating. They're trying to think, how can we problem solve? How can we brainstorm? What might be some good ideas for us to innovate on what we're doing? Well, Michael, what happens is those people can enter into a meeting and they can start talking about all their different ideas. Well, the vast majority, what we know of just about personalities in general, about 75% of the population is not future oriented. They're more present oriented. They're more kind of living in the moment. What's going on? What can I see, taste, touch, smell? So here's what happens. A leader comes in and goes, hey, I was thinking over the weekend and I know we're down in revenue, so I've been having this idea. What if we created this new service? Or what if we decided to deliver our product this way? Well, what happens, Michael, is the leader sometimes is just ideating, innovating. It's still, maybe you would say the clay is still very wet. But if they don't clarify what they're saying, people in that meeting are hearing, our CEO wants us to be able to deliver this service in this way. They leave the meeting, Michael, and they start working on it. They start allocating time and resources. They come back to a meeting 2 weeks later, and the CEO is like, oh yeah, I thought about that some more and I don't really think it's going to work. I'm on to something else, right? Well, what has happened? That person's crushed because they're thinking, I just worked on something for 2 weeks. So here's the idea. When a leader goes into a meeting, if you can begin to use this language, provision, plan, promise, Even starting a conversation saying, hey, y'all, I've been thinking about some different ideas we can do to generate revenue. This is a provisional conversation. We're innovating. We're having it's ideation. I'm not asking you to take specific steps. This is a provisional conversation. Later down the road, you might have a conversation, and that meeting is framed, we are now planning to deliver this service or this product in this new way, or we're going to try this new thing in light of what has happened. And I now want us to start planning to do this to launch by September 1, whatever it might be. And then very judiciously use the term, hey team, I promise you that everybody's going to be back to work by such and such a date. Or I promise that this is what we're going to do in a company. Because you want to go, hey, if I promise you something, nothing short of death is going to keep me from doing it. But here's the thing, Michael, sometimes the CEO or the leader, in their mind, they're having a provisional conversation, but the person in the room heard it as a plan or a promise. And that can cause communication to get so sideways. So I would just say, especially as things are shifting and changing so fast right now, if a leader will frame the conversation, provision, plan, promise, it'll go a long way in providing clarity.
Very good. Very good. That gives me insights for my role with Medi-Share, as well as my role in the church, pastoring and making sure this is going to be very applicable and usable. Thank you for sharing that.
Awesome.
Let's talk in this respect. You know, you've got people in the ministry and even those in the marketplace. If you're a believer, your ministry is in the marketplace, you know. So we're all pouring out, whether in business, a nonprofit, a ministry, a church, a parachurch. Talk to the importance of self-care. You know, I once heard it said by a mentor of mine, if there's no you, there's no ministry, Mike. You know, so you got to take care of you. How can leaders give some advice on that topic of, you know, refilling the tank, if you will?
Yeah, that's such a good, I'm so glad that you brought that up. I think it's so important because, Michael, a lot of times people are in that top leadership position because they have a lot of capacity. They're fantastic problem solvers. They're able to stay calm and peaceful maybe when other people aren't. They're able to shoulder the weight of a lot of responsibility. But if we're not careful, then we just go and go and go. And because maybe we do have more capacity and stamina than maybe other people on the team, we're just not recognizing the signs of burnout. But I would just want to speak to myself, to you, to everybody that's listening. Michael, we have just got to block time. I mean, go to your calendar and literally schedule time on the calendar that it's recharge time. We just have to have it. Michael, when I look back on different seasons of my life in leadership, I can think of two particular times that I feel like I was going to work every day. I was working harder than I ever had. I had the very best intentions in mind, Michael, but I had not really been attentive to my own self-care. And what happened was I just feel like I was more impatient than I normally am. I feel like some of my responses were shorter, more abrupt than they would have normally been. I don't feel like I was as creative as I could have been, but I kept pushing, thinking, I've got to show up, I've got to do my job. And yet, a friend of mine always says, this is the question we have to ask ourselves. What is it like to be on the other side of me? What's it like to be on the other side of me? And Michael, if I'm not paying attention to self-care, it's not great to be on the other side of me. So this is where we really have to have this frame of mind. I need to know myself to lead myself. So for me, Holly, a lot of the work I do is interacting with people in groups, and I absolutely love it. But when I need to recharge my battery, I need to get quiet. I'm kind of an introvert at heart, so I need to just get quiet with a cup of hot tea and read a book. It's so refreshing to me sometimes just to take some time in the middle of the day and go have a walk, just get some sunshine and some vitamin D. For other people, it would be incredibly recharging for them to do a Zoom call with 20 of their closest friends, and they're laughing and somehow figuring out how to play a game on Zoom. So whether you recharge with people that are important to you or you need downtime, I just want to encourage all of us to be on the other side of us when we've not taken care of ourselves. We may think we're soldiering through and getting the job done, but I think we can end up, Michael, doing more damage than we ever thought possible.
Yeah, I agree. And I can think back to some seasons in my own life where you can do damage to yourself and to others along the way. And I love that saying, what's it like to be on the other side of yourself? So yeah, it's a good opportunity to look at that. But, I can't help but think, Holly, in this predicament, we've got this meshing of
Right.
work life all of a sudden, like, I have a friend and he's very, he's very detailed, and he's like, me and my wife work in this room in the house. When we leave that room, we're not working anymore, so that drawing these really good boundaries.
Yes.
At the same time, in this meshing of work and life, how can leaders be present and productive at the same time?
So this is something I'm thinking about a lot for myself and for those that I work with. So again, I want to give you another tool that we've created at Giant, and it's just going to be some simple sign language, Michael, that we can all use with each other. So I want you to think back. I don't know, did you ever learn how to drive a stick shift car?
I did. I actually started driving in a 1-ton and 2-ton flatbed, which was not a fun experience.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's crazy. So I learned how to drive with a stick shift car. God bless my mother. She had the patience of Job to do that, right? It can be a little tricky, but I want you to just mentally kind of think, if you're driving a stick shift car, you've got to find a way to move and change those different gears. You could not drive that truck, and I could not have driven my mom's station wagon. And the whole entire time I drove, I kept in second gear, right? It just doesn't work. We've got to learn how to shift. If we want to know how to be fully engaged and present in the moment, yet also have times when we're productive, whatever that might be, I want to talk to you about a concept called 5 gears. So just like a car has gears, really, I think we have them in our own life as well. So I want you to think about this. Gear number 5 is focus. Those are times during the day that I go, okay, I'm getting laser focused. I'm getting here in my office. I've turned my phone off. I've got it very quiet. I'm doing a writing project, I'm on the phone with a client, whatever it might be, but I'm getting rid of distractions and I'm getting laser focused, and I'm going to get a lot of work done on a particular project. Gear number 4 is task. That's when I'm in more of a multitasking phase. I might have been returning a phone call while I'm kind of checking my email. I could answer a text. Something might come in, I might sign off on something. You can imagine times in your life where you're kind of able to multitask and do several things, or you're kind of in task mode, right? You've got that to-do list and hey, over the next hour, I'm going to send these 5 emails, return these 3 phone calls, and schedule a Zoom call, right? Boom, 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 you're going down the task. Gear 3 is social. That's when I'm just interacting with my family. On Wednesday nights, I lead a small group through my church. We're doing our small group through Zoom. That's a great time where we're still socially staying connected. Gear 2 is connection. That's more one-on-one time. That might be 2 spouses finding a way to still have a date night because they just leave and go take a walk, just the 2 of themselves in the neighborhood. Or last night, my best friend Sharon, we had sort of just scheduled time and we spent an hour on the phone, and it was tell me how you're really doing. Right? We're really connecting. And then gear number 1 is recharge, which we just talked about with self-care. I know for me, I need some downtime. So here's the thing. what happens is we're sometimes trying to be in multiple gears, or we don't know when to shift gears. So I'm really recommending people that I work with, Michael, is to get your calendar for the day and block out your times and go, have I scheduled focus time? Have I scheduled task time? Have I scheduled some social time? Have I made sure that I've got some connection time? Did I schedule recharge time? So that I do that. And what happens with that is, let's just say you're at home and you have small children, and all of a sudden a child wants to interrupt you. You almost as a family could go, hey buddy, I'm in fifth gear right now. We'll connect at lunch. But then you might say, hey family, we're all going to come together for 30 minutes. Let's meet in the kitchen. We're going to have lunch. We're going to just have a really fun time together. We're going to be in gear number 3 for lunch, whatever that might be. It's amazing. Even kids can learn that almost as sign language in the family. And then finally, that reverse gear, Michael, we call that respond. Those are the times when we've hurt somebody's feelings, or we just came across in a way that we didn't need to, and we actually need to go in reverse, go back, and we need to make something right. So I think even just thinking through that, it allows us to say, I am intentionally choosing to be in this gear for this amount of time, and I'm going to be fully engaged and present in it, because I know later I'm going to shift into another gear, and then I'll be fully present and engaged in that.
Excellent. Good word. Now, you've given these 5 gears, or if we count reverse, a 6th gear.
Yeah.
I also, think of your material and some of the themes that you've worked into companies, whether business or nonprofit. Kind of as we land the plane here, give me some advice or leaders' advice in helping them create a culture of hope, opportunity, empowerment. A lot of the resource here, Holly, is really giving people resources and hope. And so, give us some advice. How do we create a culture? Hope, opportunity, empowerment.
Yeah. If you think back, you yourself, Michael, other people that are listening to us, if you think back on the people in your life, maybe that have had the most impact on you, it could be a parent, it might be a coach, your first boss. I look back on the very first boss that I had when I started my corporate career. His name was Bob Beatty. He had such an impact on me and my career. And you might not have used this language, but I think the people that have impacted us that way, Michael, they did something really key. They calibrated high support and high challenge at the same time. Because I want you to think about it. Sometimes I need high support. I need to know I made a mistake, but do you know what? My leader still has faith in me. They're going to speak belief in me. They are going to give me some grace. They're going to say, hey, you know what? I know you learned from this, and I believe that you're going to come back from it. They're going to offer that support when I'm struggling, or I've gone through maybe a personal issue and I just needed somebody to really, really lean in. They offer that high support. But a great leader also balances that with high challenge, right? I can remember Bob, he would say, Holly, these are your quarterly objectives, right? And there was no excuse making, right? It was, these are the objectives. I'm holding you to that. Holly, this is a problem. You got to figure out how to solve it. In fact, I trace a lot of my problem solving capability and my problem solving skill because I respected him so much, and I so wanted to do a good job for him that if I encountered a problem, I just somehow was like, I am going to figure out how to solve this problem because he had challenged me to do so. So this is what every great leader does. They look at their people, they understand that person's temperament, they know what's going on with them personally, professionally, they know what their goals are, they know what they respond to. And then when they're going to approach each person that they're leading, each day they're calibrating, on Monday, it might be, I need to give a little bit more support and less challenge. On Thursday, it might be, I need to do a full court press challenge. That's what this person needs from me. So I think when a leader will skillfully calibrate high support and high challenge, people feel hopeful about their future. They feel like they do have an opportunity to learn and grow, and they can really they're liberated to become the best version of themselves. So I would really encourage everybody as we kind of close out today, even if they entered into every conversation and went, as I'm talking with this person, what is going to bring out the best in that person? How can I fight for that person's highest possible good? And how do I calibrate high support and high challenge to really to liberate them to be their very best?
Wow, fantastic. That really, as you just said that last thing, I immediately thought of Philippians chapter 2, counting others above yourself.
Yes.
In a case like this situation, we can easily look inward and forget about all the people that we're just casually talking to every day. We can overlook that and miss opportunity ourselves. Well, I'll tell you what, folks that are logging in and clicking in, and I'm sure you've got a ton out of this, and you mentioned a few things that you're a part of. Holly, please give them an opportunity to go somewhere to connect with you or obtain more resourcing from you.
Thank you, Michael. Well, it's been such a privilege to be with you today, and just a joy. I love to talk about all things leader and people development. So here's two things. If you just want to contact me, my website is hollisstrategies.com, and there's a way for you to connect with me, and I would love to speak to anyone. But second of all, as I mentioned, I've got a relationship and consult with an organization called Giant, and we have a resource called Giant TV, and we have created some free resources to help people be able to balance that working and living at home right now. We're not sure how long we're going to continue to, at least be working, if not all the time, part of the time at home. And so, Michael, any of your viewers could simply go to giant.tv/remote/Hollis Strategies, and we'll put that up on the screen. But if they go to that link, there are a number of free resources that will just give them some tips on how to really lead their team well as they're working remotely. And I hope that those will be a real blessing to people that take advantage of that.
I know they will. I know they will, Holly. Thank you so much for joining us today and really just pouring out so much of your life's experience in a concise interview here. Thank you for maximizing that time. And folks, blessings on your life. Again, you know how to get in touch with Holly now. Holly, we appreciate you popping in and sharing hope. God bless you.
It was an honor. Thanks, Michael.